Welcome to our workshop. This is early literacy community assets analysis. We're going to figure out how we know what our communities need. And these are the goals for today's workshop: understanding what it is and its value to your library, gaining some techniques and some tools to be able to do it, and understanding, which is part of what you just did, the forms you just filled out, understanding yourself and your attitudes better, and then feeling empowered to do a community asset analysis in your own library. Okay. Increases a lot. All right, got to get this PowerPoint working again. I guess. There we go. Okay, that'll take care of it. There we go. All right. So what is an early literacy community asset analysis? We're going to call it a community analysis because that's too much of a mouthful. So it's basically, it's the first training in a series of 5 that New York State is doing a new initiative with. It's called Ready to Read at New York Libraries, an early childhood public library staff development program. This is our cute little logo that we're going to use for it. This is the draft for that using our state mammal. Did you know the state mammal was the beaver? No. So this is the goal of this whole program of Ready to Read at New York Libraries is to enable New York Public Libraries to improve the quality of their early literacy services to their patrons with young children. As we all know, there's a lot of buzz in the media and politically about early literacy. There's all the infant brain research. There's the universal pre-Ks that are being installed everywhere. And there's so much more than that. If we aren't stepping up in our early literacy game, and marketing what we do, what we're capable of, because we all have these assets, then we're missing the boat. We need to be up there with everyone else in promoting the early literacy aspect of education. Early literacy is one of the 7 recommendations of the 2020 vision for New York State, and it's also one of the top 4 priorities in the state's LSTA 5-year plan. So New York State is very serious about this initiative. Ready to Read at New York Libraries, like I said, contains 5 training sessions. And right now we're in the planning grant from the Laura Bush Foundation, and we have applied for a program grant that will run from 2015 to 2018. And hopefully we'll hear from that by March, I think is the date, when we'll know whether we got the grant. And the initiative is a train the trainer type model, which is what a lot of the things we do is they train me and I train you. So it works that way, and then you take it back to your library and initiate it there. The 5 parts of the training, we do have one of our partners, our statewide partners, is the Reach Out and Read program, which is part of the American Pediatric Association, American Academy of Pediatrics, part of theirs, and they put out a statement this year that said the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that pediatric providers promote early literacy development for children beginning in infancy and continuing at least until the age of kindergarten entry. This includes counseling all parents about developmentally appropriate shared reading activities. So it's something that the AAP is saying doctors should do this. They should tell parents what they need to do, get their children reading, make reading allowed to your child as part of every well child visit. So the training sessions we're going to have through Ready to Read are this one, which is the community analysis, using Every Child Ready to Read 2, which is a training program for incorporating early literacy into your story times and activities in your library. Tells you what to give to the parents, what you tell the parents. And some of you may have taken the training I did for early literacy, Every Child Ready to Read 1 about 8 years ago. This is revamped, and for the parent, on the parent side, what the parent needs to learn, it's a lot simpler. So that will be an interesting training, and we'll have that probably next year. Early learning spaces. What do our spaces look like? Do they encourage early learning? What do we have in our spaces? Strategies for successful partnerships and outreaches to families with young children. So partnerships, we can't do this on our own in isolation. We have to work with those in our community, which is part of what we're doing today, is learning about who they are and how to connect with them. But that workshop will be specifically for connecting with other organizations in your community. And then Everyone Serves Families with Young Children. This is a training that we hope all staff members of all the libraries will participate in, because everyone actually serves the families with young children. It doesn't matter what you do in the library, everyone does this. And so our goal is to have every staff member in every public library trained with this knowledge and the skills to assist families with young children in their early literacy efforts. They need all the help they can get. So what is a ELCAA, a community analysis? It is an intentional effort to pull together information about young families in your own community and the early literacy environment that they live in. And it's about bringing that information to our conscious awareness so that we can make improvements in the services that we offer. We have community needs that we're going to look at. We're going to look at community assets as well. The needs are the gaps between what a situation is and what the situation should be. And to understand the needs, we need to get information about who's in our community, what their life situations are, what their wants and needs are. For the assets, those are things that can be used to improve their quality of life. Organizations, people, partnerships, facilities, funding, policies, regulations, and your community's overall collective experience. So why do this? Why do a community assessment or an analysis? Maybe we should approach that by asking why, when we leave here, would we not do it? Sometimes we don't ask questions because we don't really want to know the answer. We all avoid asking questions that we don't want to know the answers to because it might force us to change. And also there's the thing of, if I don't ask, if I already know the answer, I don't need to ask. Or if I think I know the answer, I don't need to ask. So sometimes we assume that we already know the answer, and so we don't need to do anything. We don't need to make changes because we know what's best in our communities. And sometimes that's because what we assume is the answer we want to hear. That's what we want to hear, so that's what we assume the information will tell us. Each of us has habits in our daily routines. We have both in our professional and our personal lives. And sometimes we don't want to rock that boat. We don't want to change. We don't want to try to do anything different from what we've already done, because change is always difficult. But we need to know what our communities really need and what our communities really want. And libraries say they serve everybody, but we need to take time to find out who doesn't come through our doors and why they don't come through our doors. What do they need that we can offer to them? So there's a cost to not questioning and assessing ourselves and our services every few years. We run the risk of becoming stagnant, irrelevant within our communities, and we might see a sign like this hanging. Communities change, the library must change with it. And we can, and we should be leading some of that change, especially in this area with early literacy. We can be one of the leaders. So think for a moment. Are there any changes in the community that you serve that you have observed in the last 5 or 10 years? The demographics of your community, the population, all that kind of stuff. More little children, more, very few little children, people not having children. I know Jamestown for sure, the population keeps decreasing. but it seems like they keep having more younger children, a lot of younger children being born in Jamestown. But does anybody have anything they've noticed in their community? Any changes? Some of you are fairly new, so you wouldn't know the changes unless you've lived in the community. But we need to start being observant and looking out for the changes that we find in our communities. Some of you work in very small communities. Most of you work in very small communities. And if your community is small and you know it well, what's the value of this to you? It's just this, that no matter how well you think you know your community and its early literacy landscape, you will learn things that might surprise you and develop new ways that you can serve families with young children more effectively. Politically, as we mentioned, there's a lot of buzz out there about early literacy, and it's not going away anytime soon. It's on the forefront of all education right now. And the more we at the library are known as being knowledgeable in early literacy, the more we are respected and viable in our communities. And if you and your staff already know a lot, you're ahead of the game. That's going to help you. Today, okay, this is handout number 5. Number 3, anyway, number 3 tells you about the whole program that we were just talking about. Number 5, we're going to use an example throughout this program this morning, and it's the Johnstown Public Library in upstate New York. There's an extra copy of the self-assessment and the library assessment for you to take back and use with your staff. Have them fill it out so you can get a feel for how your whole staff, volunteers included, feel about what's going on in your library. So this handout gives you a little bit of the facts about the Johnstown Public Library. It serves 17,046 residents in Johnstown and contracts with 2 other towns. There are, out of 17,046, there are 7,450 borrowers. They have holdings of 33,000, of almost 34,000, and their circulation, their children's materials were 29% of their circulation. So this is some of the kind of things that we will determine about our own libraries, and we'll get to that in a minute. How their programs, it shows how their programs are conducted, 455 during the year. One story time for preschoolers is held weekly. So that's their kind of basic overview. And we don't want to have our lives not be worth living. So we want to examine what we do, and we want to examine what we think. So what did you discover? Did you discover anything about yourself in doing that assessment? Or what are the strengths for your library or the weaknesses that you might need to work on? Anybody want to share what they wrote, mainly about their library? I don't want to really jump into your personal thing. That's for you to look at. But what are the strengths in your library as far as early literacy services go?
Well, did somebody wave at
No.
I find, our community just had a spectacular thing on Saturday. The fire hall doesn't work across from the fire hall. So we had, the Friends of the Library had Tilly DeSalle, and I did 3 reading things. Of course, and when I do this, it's good. We have a problem in our community. When the schools merged, the new board deliberately closed the school in Little Valley. And I was very lucky because the teachers there would bring their kids over, and every week, and I had several classes come. So I don't have that anymore, and that's difficult for me, and I think for them. They aren't getting the library visit. But I find when it does, like this past weekend, and I had different kids in there, different parents, and this type of thing, and I find they want more. And when we said, and I have added to that is the fact that one of my trustees is a former music teacher, And so she very often comes with with what I'm reading, and she'll have songs for them to go along with it, and the kids love that. And she and I both know that's essential to brain development, which seems to not be a big thing in schools these days. And so I think it's a positive thing that every time we reach out or have something and have somebody different come, we're educating them.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very good. Anyone else? What strengths do you have?
We have the Lions Den, the Randolph Lions Club of, I'm a Lion.
Okay.
And one of the other members of the club who was a teacher, fourth grade, I believe, for the past couple of years. It changes,
Yeah.
And it was her idea. It's the second and fourth Saturdays at 10:30. It's for children 0 to 3, and we have books in the library that are not part of the library collection, mostly board books, things like that. We also have CD players and CDs, children's songs, that anyone can come and borrow, but if they don't bring them back, we're not real concerned. Usually they do. Our biggest problem is getting people to come. We've taken off for the winter this year. It's the first time we've done that, and we're going to see if we can revitalize it.
Okay.
But that's what it's a great program, and the Lions Club has been amazingly generous.
They're providing the books. for you?
Yeah.
Nice. Very nice.
And the library provides a space, and both of us are members of the Lions Club.
Very good. Anybody else? Okay. What about things that you might find in your library that you think you would need to work on? What things do you think you could possibly do better, or you have ideas for, or you wish would go better? We all have those that we wish would go better. Like Ellen was saying about revitalizing
Yeah.
this program
Yeah.
so that they get
Yeah.
more people interested.
Right.
Anybody want to mention something that you think probably needs some work in the library?
We have a lot of teen appropriate books in our collection, but they just don't circulate, so I don't know how you get between age kids.
Yeah, you don't have them coming in to
Yeah.
borrow, right?
But we don't have a lot of kids in general in Finley Lake, so
Yeah, that's one of the problems with small communities.
Mhm.
And maybe that's what you need to look for when you're doing this kind of community assessment. Where is our population? And if you do it every few years, then you catch those changes. Like if you have a lot of preschool age kids, in 5 years, they're going to be tweens. 7 years, they're going to be teens. Then they'll be young adults, and keeping track of
Yeah.
that progression so that you meet the needs of that group as it grows. Okay. The real work of a community analysis begins in your library, as we talked about before, and you have the extra blank handouts of those two that you filled in so that you can take those back and make copies, have your staff, your volunteers, have everybody that you can that works in your library fill it out so you can get an idea of what the whole group thinks. And there's handout number 6, which is the internal library assessment. You can either do that, have them do it individually, or you can have them do it as a group, get together and go over that one as a group if you'd like, and see how your library fits into that. The internal assessments, let's take a look at it for a minute and see what you might think needs to be added, taken away, things you disagree with, uncomfortable with. There's a lot of information on here. Like the last one, it says minimize your policies and procedures that block agency participation. You have an agency that uses your library. Are you making it easy for their kids to have access to your materials? Do you need to simplify something, make it easier for them? That may be a hard one to do. We all like our materials coming back and properly being used, but sometimes we have to loosen some of that stuff. I don't know, there may be some things on there. Let's take a look at the number 7, which is the Johnstown program's assessment of themselves. they provide, part of it is your current status, and part of it is how important is that to you. So providing parents with pertinent information on information services. They think it needs strengthening, but their importance is this is very important. And we're probably all in that boat. We know it's very important to provide parents with the pertinent information on programs and services, but we always can probably do more than what we are doing to get that information out to them. Giving parents written materials about the library depends on how you handle that. When the children get a library card, are they given information about how the children's department works or how checkout works? Many of us are small libraries, so there's not a lot of difference in the way the children's department and the adult department work. So it's a matter of figuring it out. You establish rapport, giving ample opportunity for parents to ask questions. Now, this particular community thinks that that's a very strong strength of theirs, and they also consider it very important. Most of us would consider it important for parents to be able to ask questions. Interacting with families in a manner that is respectful of the individual or the cultural diversity. Once again, a lot of us are not very diverse. A few of our communities are. So that's something to take into consideration if your community is. Sometimes it's difficult, because I know when I worked at Pendergast, we tried to reach out to the Spanish community so many times and got very little response because it's not naturally in their culture to use a public library for free. That's not something that's a part of their culture, especially Puerto Rico, which is where most of the local Hispanics come from. Offering parents choices in programs for their children and themselves. They consider it very important. They know they need to work on it. The second set of columns is where they've indicated what they've done later. That they made improvements, they've evaluated again, and they've done it. They've made the improvements that they feel they need to do. Let's see, facilitate parent participation in planning new library services. Important, but they don't think they do a very good job of it at all. It's not one of their strengths at all. Ensure that parents participate in all programs available to their children. It's important, and it is one of their strengths. They have a lot of, but it's not one of their most important things. Anyway, you can go through that and look at that. It's just an example for you to see how another library filled this program out and how they assess themselves. And then working with other agencies, you see down there that some things are not a priority to them and not important to them. But should they be? At this point, they aren't. But if you look in the second column, you find out that they have made those important instances in their library. Okay, the basic data is what we need to learn about focusing on our early childhood services. You have your own assessments. You can get them from your coworkers. You'll have good data for what's going on and what the opinions are in your own library. So then next we need to move on to looking at what's in the community. And the next handout, number 8, is a community map. And we're going to begin filling that out today. As we go through, you'll find things that can go into that community map. And you'll be able to fill some of it out. But what are the kinds of information that we want to capture on this map? And if you're looking at the next handout, it has the one for the Johnstown Library. You'll see the kind of things that they have put on their handout to make it, to help them understand who's in their community, what assets do they have in their community, what things are going on in the community. You can kind of see the categories that they've used. They have a list of youth agencies. They have a list of specific literacy programs. They have hospitals. They have teen programs. They have faith communities. They have a place for some of their demographics where they have their numbers of children in their different towns. And then their business communities. Who in their business communities would be a good asset to include in this. And then all the early childhood programs that are in their area. So these are the kind of things that you're going to want to fill in on your map, the things that you know are in your community or that your people use the things that you have, and if it's not something that people that use the library actually are participants in, you might want to, approach those agencies to see about connecting with them. So some of the demographics that we need to figure out, family makeup, that's one of the biggest things is who are the people in your community? What are they like? How many children are under the age of 5 in your service area? How many of those children live in poverty? There is a New York State CommunityAction.org puts out these little flyers, posters. One's Cattaraugus County and the other Chautauqua County, and it really gives you a lot of the information about the poverty levels in your area. This is countywide, but it kind of gives you an information. I looked at last year's and this year's. This is 2013, I think. I don't think they have one for 2014 yet, but the 2012 to 2013, the poverty level in Chautauqua County went up 1.5 points. It was like 18.5 last time, and it's 20 now. And Cattaraugus, I think, went up 0.5 point. They were like 17.2 last year, and now they're 17.7. So it kind of gives you a lot of information of the different percentages of race in your community. Let's see, where's one? Children under 18 living in poverty. In Cattaraugus County, it's 28% of the population. And of course, those of you who live in Cattaraugus County probably know a lot of this already.
Where do
But
they get that?
It's nyscommunityaction.org. And I believe I have it on one of the other handouts. I'll point it out when we get there. But I find them very interesting to look at to see what's going on in our county. And it gives you the ethnic and race compositions of your community too. What other kind of information might we want to know? Families in poverty, how many kids are in UPKs, how many grandparents are raising their grandchildren, which I know in Jamestown is a very big factor. A lot of grandparents raising their grandchildren. And we'll talk about how, there's another handout, we'll talk about how to find this information more specifically in a few minutes. Another thing we wanted to log on our maps is child serving agencies, health services such as Well Baby Clinics, and services such as WIC, and child visitation programs, and things along those lines. So what's in your area? You can, if you know the things that are in your area, you can start filling in your chart yourself. The other thing is schools. Schools are a different category slightly than other child serving agencies. And we want to know what the early literacy programs and assessments they offer are. For example, does your school have a universal pre-K? If they do a reading readiness kindergarten entry assessment. They assess the kids before they start kindergarten because it's not required by New York State, so some schools will do it and some schools will not. Do they offer that? If they do, what do they do? And will they let you look at the results? Some schools may not. I know that I have contacted with Jamestown schools in the past. They basically gave me the statistic, X number of students are not prepared, who don't have the skills they need to start kindergarten. And in Jamestown, it was more than 50. I hope with the universal pre-Ks now that maybe that's changed, but I don't know. So find out. This may be a place, if they can tell you a little bit of the specifics, like we have kids that don't know their, 75% of our kids don't know their numbers when they start kindergarten. Maybe this is a place where you can fill in something that's lacking. Offer more programs that have that beginning math structure, that just the basic beginning math structure for the preschoolers. Find out what the results are on those tests. Then you want to list also child care providers, Head Start, Early Head Start, recreation services, nonprofit or profit organizations like the Gymboree or I know Jamestown has a couple of music programs that are in town for little kids, home-based preschools and community child cares that are based in homes. There are a lot of those around too. So what is in your area? The other thing is community leaders. Who are the leaders in your community? Elected officials, the leaders of the organizations like generation. And we want, not only do we want to know, especially the child serving agencies, we want to know who the leaders are, but we also want to get information from them. And you can do that through interviews and focus groups, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We'll talk about how to do those and give tools for doing those. So now that you have an idea of what we're going to map, you can, through today, as you're thinking, you can jot down things, organizations, people, information that you know already about your community. You can fill that in on that chart about the landscape for families with young children. And you can keep it out. If it gets sloppy, don't worry about it. I'll give you another copy. I'll email you the original so that you can do it out neatly. But just, as you think of things, put it on there and see what comes up. You may be surprised at what you come up with in your community. Okay, there we go. Okay, the other thing is and this is handout 10, learn by observation. And a lot of you probably, especially in the smaller communities, that's not a difficult thing to do. You look at, try taking a different route to work, eating it at the local places, shopping at the local places, getting to know the proprietors of businesses, carrying your library tote bag everywhere, so they know you represent the library, so they know the library's there. Leave cards and flyers all over the place. Read the local paper, which a lot of the little towns don't have a local paper, but if their local paper information is in the Post Journal or the Dunkirk, whatever the Dunkirk paper is. So you can read the local paper, find out what's going on and who's who in your community. A lot of this you probably already know. And you need to just do the observations to make sure you're not thinking with preconceived ideas. Oh, I know what's going on. I don't need to look at it. You may find out, especially in larger cities, you may find out that the language on some of the signs is changing. There are a whole lot more signs in Spanish than there ever was before. So you might want to be aware of that. What businesses are opening? What businesses are closing? Who do they serve? Number of denominations and churches. How do people get around? Do they walk a lot? Do they use public transportation? Do they all have cars? Everybody has cars. Where do they shop? Do they shop mostly in the mall, the big stores? Do they use a farmer's market? Do you have one in your neighborhood? Do you have any distinct neighborhoods? Most of us, I know, have a homogeneous community, not a lot of diversity. But where's the Hispanic community? Jamestown, I know, has one. I know Dunkirk, Fredonia have one. Large Hispanic population. Where do they live? Where is their community? How would you describe your community? Most of us fall into the rural category there, rather than urban or suburban or affluent, middle class, economically disadvantaged, mixed. Where do you fit? Where does your community fit? All of this is done by observation. So not everything we know can come out of our heads. We need the facts and figures. The biggest challenge to conducting this kind of analysis is the diversity of our areas. We have such large areas, especially our rural libraries, and that can be hard because some of our areas get missed. If they don't have a particular service center, they get missed in things. But census data and things like that can help us figure out, no matter how dense or urban or how rural our area is, we can locate this information through the help of the government. And handout 11 has a whole lot of the things that are valuable for this kind of research. And I can email this to you at your little address you've left with us so that you can have it for easy access. Just click on the links and you can get to the sites much more easily. Some of the best are here. We have some of the information we need in our own annual reports. Our own story is in our own annual reports. What do we have? How big is our population? How much of our population are we really reaching? How many of them have a library card? How many that don't have a library card still use us? And then we can rely on statistics that are gathered by others, but we have to find those first. The challenge is not an impossibility of doing this. The census and other data will help you with everything. And here are some of the things that are on that chart. American Fact Finder, which is part of the census data, has a lot of community facts, popular facts about population, income, frequently requested data that's about your community, and you can search all the way down to the town level on this one, so you can get specific information about your area. We have the Census Bureau. Oh, we're going to get through this quicker than I thought. We have the Census Bureau. There's a huge section on that page of different areas in the Census Bureau. If you look, let's see if I can make this pointer work. Right there is a population clock. It constantly is calculating the population as it increases automatically. There's U.S. population and world population there, so that's kind of interesting to look at when you go to the Census Bureau site. That you can watch the numbers roll over and roll over and roll over very quickly. But with this, you can they have quick facts for New York State. You can limit it down to your county or your city as well. The Kids Wellbeing Indicators Clearinghouse, QUIC they call it. This is the Council on Children and Family Clearinghouse, and their goal is to promote efforts to gather and plot and monitor children's health, education, and well-being indicator data. And this they use as a means to improve the outcomes for New York State families. You can search by school district, and it also includes the census information. So this is a place where you can go and see more about the health issues of children, the well-being issues, things like that. This probably, since they use the school district information, probably one of the places where you can find out how many kids get a free lunch, free breakfast, reduced lunch, that kind of thing, as well as there are multiple sites where you can get that. Okay, Kids Count data. This has a wealth of information about the social, economic, educational, and demographic indicators, and it's provided by state, by county, by congressional district, by city. So you can look through that. When I had to do one of these, basic analysis, I didn't do the focus groups as a part of my training for this. This I found very useful in finding information about the kids in our area, the economic and the status of people in our area. Diversity data for kids. This was also another one that was very good. This is from Brandeis University. They maintain this database in which you can explore hundreds of measures about child well-being and policy analysis. And they gather it from unique information sources about diversity, opportunity, and equity amongst U.S. children. The site is searchable by state, by county, by large cities, and large districts, school districts. So that one's a little more limited because you can get the county information. You may not be able to narrow down to your city if you're a small city. Citydata.com. This one gives you demographic data like race, income, ancestries, education, employment, geographic, state profiles, crime data, registered sex offenders are here, cost of living, housing, religion, businesses, a lot of information in this city data. You can find out who's famous from your town, which we probably all know who our famous people are. Natural disasters, weather, employment. It's really good because this is searchable by community. So you can drill down into it as far as you need to go to find your own community.
Valerie?
Yes.
Just in case somebody doesn't know it, you can go online to New York State and plug in for sex offenders in your county. And I'm very fortunate I'm on their email now because years ago I called the sheriff's department and said, I think you need a little information. I didn't know what to do in my first years as a library director. What do you do if you know there's a sex offender in town? What are their restrictions? And I think this is important to know. And, call your county sheriff's department. But when I realized, they're not allowed within 100 feet of your thing and of your building if there are children there.
Right.
And so they started, I had to, at that point, send a letter of verifying our vulnerability at the library. They started mailing me every time a new sex offender. And of course, I have to say in Little Valley, because the jail is there, if some get out there and they don't go out of town and just pass your library. It has been very helpful. Now they'll send it to me right online from if they're whether they're coming into or leaving Cattaraugus County. And I
Okay.
go by the county and the area, but it's really a very helpful website, and it has pictures on it.
Well,
Mug
you need
shots
the
and that.
pictures because
Yeah.
otherwise you wouldn't know.
Oh, that's
people.
right. And if you don't have it, I recommend you get on and play with that website and
Yeah.
see what you can learn. 'Cause
Yeah, there are a number of
it helps.
resources
Yeah,
for that information, but that, yeah, the New York State one would be the best because
Yeah.
it has
you
the
can.
people registered in New York.
Yeah, so you can pick your county. You can do this. And you can even put in a name if you are thinking about somebody, and if you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a difficulty we all have to deal with. Another site for getting information about your community is livability.com. It has popular facts about your population, the income, frequently requested data about your community, and you can go down and search all the way down to the community level. Greatschools.org. Here you can find some of the preschool and school information. You can search by communities, and it lists things in your surrounding area. You can find out what the information is about your school. Like in this particular area, they said they have 33 schools in their area. They found 33 schools found in the Johnstown area. That's a lot of schools. But you can go down through this and find out more information about your school. And of course, the State Board of Education, the State Education Department is a good place. They have the school report cards, which give you how many students in your school district have the limited English. They have, they're involved in ESL classes. How many have the free lunches? What the performance is on the state tests, which everybody, of course, is in uproar about nowadays. But it gives you how your area is performing on state tests. A lot of this information is really important to have when you're writing grants, because most grant writers, most grant providers will provide for an area that has either extremely low income, extremely low educational levels, or extremely low test scores at their schools. So this is some good information to have for grants. It also has a place where you can check out about the free lunches and the free breakfast that a lot of kids get in their school. Okay, the Children's Defense Fund. The only problem with this is it only goes to the state level, but it has a lot of interesting information about children in this country and the things that they face. It may give you a place to look at and find questions to ask in another location. Okay, well, what about the kids in my area? How many of them are in this kind of situation? And then you can ask that in another location where it will drill down to your level. And then, of course, there's always Google. Google does have a little thing that they call Google Trends. And it's a free, I think it's an app that you can get. I haven't looked at it closely myself, but it can tell you what's trending in your area of what people are searching. What's important to the people. If you find out, you can go in there and you can look. This could even be a help for programming. Go in there and look and see what's trending in your area, and you see that, 38% of the people that are searching for things about dogs. Then maybe you might think about doing some kind of program with dogs. Or if 57% of the people searching are looking at a particular, thing, auto mechanics or craft, a particular kind of craft or something like that. You can see what's trending in your area as far as people searching on the internet, and they will help you see what's going on. I meant to play with it a little bit before we started and never got around to it. But to see what's going, Google Trends is the name of it. So what else? What other things might we want to ask? What other kinds of questions, information might we want to know? We've already talked about, free lunches. We've talked about how many children under the age of 5. How many families are, children being raised by grandparents? How about how many dads stay at home and don't work? How many homes are, of course, single parent homes is always a big one. What are the baseline income levels in your community? What is, the majority of our communities, we probably have a lot of people that are below the poverty level. How diverse are we? Jamestown, I know, has a huge Hispanic population, or a growing Hispanic population. I think Glencoe and Fredonia do as well. But, and Fredonia, of course, has the large college population. That's then an important factor in thinking about services that you provide and the early literacy services that you provide. Oh, we are way ahead of schedule. So I have lunch scheduled next, but we'll skip that slide. We'll skip lunch and go on, and maybe we'll be done early.
We'll be done by lunch.
Okay.
Oh, it is. It's very affordable.
We're supposed to have lunch at 12. Megan hasn't even left to go pick up food yet. So I didn't know it would go that fast. Well, the people that I borrowed part of this from said they did it in 3 hours. Well, I added to it, so I thought maybe it would. Okay. So how do we find these things out? What are some of the ideas about how to be early literacy detective in our library? Does your library hire local people? If you do, talk to them. Get them to fill out those forms. Find out what your teen pages think about what happens in the library as far as what kids do. Find out the moms that work in your library. What's your idea about how the library is doing? Circulation clerks, what do they think about their community in general? Do they like their community? What do they see happening in their community, especially in conjunction with young children? What services in their community do they use? What do they take advantage of? Where do they go? What organizations are they a part of? Start with your staff. Start with those within your own library, which we've mentioned before. What community groups do you go to? Like Ellen mentioned, she was in the Lions Club, and a lot of us probably attend a church somewhere or synagogue. Talk to the people in your organization about what do they do with their children or grandchildren. Are they aware of what the library has to offer? Are they aware of what early literacy services, especially if they're the preschool age, what do they do? Do they just do the UPK at school? Are they a part of Head Start? Do they go to some other organization? These are things that you can find out from people you know to fill in your map with all the blocks on it. And are there any local service groups that you can go and talk to so that you can tell them what your library can do, what your library can offer, how you can be of assistance in your community with early literacy, understanding, and services? What do they think or know? We have a picture of who makes up our community, and now we want to know what they are and what they think and know about our library. So we will conduct some focus groups. Focus groups is this is the part that I'm not good at this stuff, but it's something that we can do, and with some of the resources that I'm giving you here, you can handle these fairly easily. It sounds daunting, and the first thought in my mind was, I don't know if I can do something like that. But stand up if you can't organize anything. Nobody's standing. Stand up if you can't listen to what people say. Or stand up if you can't think. We can all do these things. And that's the basic skills that you need to have to do these. You need those skills. We're going to provide you with some tools. So that means you can all do a community focus group on early literacy. And I didn't say conduct one, because it's actually better if you gather a focus group that someone they don't know conducts the focus group for them, because they're more likely to speak freely about the library in front of someone who is not directly connected to the library. So we'll talk about that more in a minute. So it actually helps to have someone else conduct a focus group. And we have all the instructions, so it's an easy thing to do. Focus groups involve planning, preparation, and follow-up, but they're not really that hard. Handout 12 is some things to help you with developing your focus groups. Let me get to 12 myself. Okay. So there are several steps. So deciding how many focus groups you need is part of the process, some of the decisions you need to make. Most of you may want to do one, and one may be enough. You may want to get, a few people that come to your story time, a few people from the community that maybe have grandchildren, somebody from one of the agencies that deals with children. You just need a focus group of people, and you only need to do one. You can start with one. If you decide you want to have more, you can have more. You can organize more. Determine whether they have to be. You want a heterogeneous group or a homogeneous group? Means you want a diverse group of people from all different, like I just mentioned, parents in your storytime group, people with grandchildren, people from organizations. Do you want to do that kind of, or do you want to do it just with the parents of young children that come into your library, or that that maybe don't come into your library? Just a small group of just parents of young children. You can do it either way. And you can always, change it and do more. How long? 45 minutes, no more than 45 minutes. You're basically going to have 5 or 6 people in this group. They're going to answer a certain number of questions, and you won't have time for much more than that. And you don't want to wear them out. You don't want to have anybody to have to make a huge commitment that will be difficult for them to keep. So how many questions? Basically a maximum of 6 questions. 40 minutes, 45 minutes for 5 people to answer 6 questions is probably all you can do. You can, you can prioritize your questions so that you make sure you get the ones you really want the answers to first. Run out of time, then you can drop a question at the end or something like that. But you want to do that. And this allows some time for conversation among the group. Because as you know, when people start talking, one person sparks an idea in another person, and the conversation gets going that way. So who do we want to invite? Look for diversity in age, numbers and ages of children, gender of children, family makeup, 1 parent, 2 parents, all kinds of ethnicities, economic status, neighborhoods they live in. So if you can get a diversity, it's good. That's probably more effective than doing one that's strictly one type of people, one type of demographic. And then you need to select a facilitator. And the facilitator should ideally be a neutral person that the participants don't really know. You could trade with another library director. You could ask one of us at the system. I would be glad to help. I have 2 libraries that have committed to our contract program of me helping them with every step of these 5 trainings, and they've contracted to come to the 5 trainings and do whatever work is required in the 5 trainings. So, I'm definitely going to be helping them. This is Diane and Tracy. I'm definitely going to be helping them with all of this in their own library. But, you can figure out different ways of doing this. Like I said, you can trade libraries with another director, somebody else that you're friends with or that just say, hey, can you come over and conduct my focus group? The next thing is to capture what's said. The recommendation is to make a recording as well as having a facilitator or a note taker take notes. And be sure to tell the people that you have in your focus group that everything that they give you is going to be confidential. If I were doing a recording, I would not record when everybody does, introduces themselves to everybody else. I need to do that. But And that the tape will only be used for making sure that the notes that were taken completely, and we've gotten all the information down that we want from this focus group, with pertinent information. And I even have some small tape recorders from a project that I did years ago that you guys can borrow if you need to. But it's a good idea to do a recording and have a note taker. And your note taker could be your facilitator, could be someone else taking notes for you. But that's, you really need to make sure you don't miss any of the important information they are giving you. Then you need to set the stage. You all have all those organizing skills. You got all of that going. So this is the day you have all things organized and ready to go. This is the day of your focus group. You prepare the room. Privacy is an important issue. You don't want to do this at a big table in the middle of the library unless the library's closed. You don't want to have a lot of people around when you're doing it. Give them drinks and snacks, little name tents on the table or something so they know who each other is. So you prepare the space for it. And then handout 13 has information about, a script about how to actually conduct the program, the focus group. Questions to ask, how to set it up. Oops. So if you're not facilitating, you need to go away. Once it's all set up and everybody's there, you need to leave. You need to go in your office somewhere, you need to go home, whatever, but you don't need to be there during this program because, they want to have the freedom to speak openly. And they may feel, being the librarian, they're talking about your library, they may feel a little uncomfortable that way. So you want to make it as free as possible for them. So that's why the outside facilitators. And then when you're all done, when you're going through all of this, the questions, tell me what it's like living in your community. How long have you and your family lived here? I want to know what it's like for your family having young children. What's it like in this community for you? What resources do you rely on? Do they use the WIC program? Do they use Head Start? Are there businesses that help you that are especially important to you as a parent of young children? What organizations or businesses do we need? What are we missing? What can't you get in our area? How familiar, that's another one, like if somebody says, well, I wish we had something like Gymboree in our area. Well, maybe you can do programming that is a little more on the active side. Maybe when you develop your children's room spaces, you can have a few more active pieces in there for the kids to do. How familiar are they with what you, as the library, provide for children from birth to kindergarten? What things would they like to see in your library? What services would they like to see? What would you like the library to do in general to improve you and your children's lives in this community? Does anyone have comments? We always let people have an open door to being able to say whatever else they need. But there's a script, so it's very simple, very easy, tells you exactly what to say. So when you're done, then you need to follow up with thank yous. It's very important. A handwritten note to the people who participated lets them really understand how important what they have done for you is to you and to your library. So you can do the handwritten notes, send your business cards, send a library bookmark with it, something like that, so that they can keep you in their memory. Okay. Back. Analysis is the next thing, but we're going to do that once we finish talking about other focus groups and interviews. So we'll need to get to an analysis of the information that we received from these people, figuring out how this helps us, how this fits into our organization, and how it can guide what we do in the future. Organizing a focus group is a lot of work, but it's work that's well within the capabilities of each of us. And careful planning is important because we want the most information, the most valuable information from what these people are giving up their time to telling, valuable to our library. And that's the risk of a focus group, that the people in it will feel that what they did wasn't useful and that they won't be, and that what they said will not be considered. Your facilitator is key in that process, but your contacts with the attendees before and after is also important in that process. Letting them know that you really, really appreciate And even maybe making a comment, "Oh, I really liked your comment about such and such, or that was a great idea." Not specifically to that person, but in the group, because you're keeping their information confidential. In the group, there was this great idea that we really like, and, in your thank you notes, add a comment like that. Okay. We will go on. We are going to be done early. I talk too much in New York. Handout 14, you also need to get information from key informants. Now, key informants is people who know about Young Families Leader. They are people who know a lot about your community without necessarily being in a leadership role. They may not be the head of Head Start, but they know about what goes on in your family. Maybe, a community home care provider, daycare provider that has a daycare in their home. That may be a person like a nurse in a pediatric clinic. We call those kind of people gatekeepers. They kind of know what's going on, they kind of know the landscape and understand, but they may not have a strictly formal position. We especially want to approach those that are a part of the underserved populations in our community. For instance, in ethnic communities, the gatekeeper may be someone who has no authority or position, but is just someone who knows everybody. And a lot of us have people in our communities that know everybody. It could be, and they're well respected, and the members of their community really listen to them. So those are what we call gatekeepers, key informants. In other cases, they may be people in the community organizations or agencies that we're going to put on our community maps. The local historian. I remember Tracy had the program with the local historian at their library's anniversary. And it's like I'm listening to him, and he knows everybody. He knows all about the town. He knows everything that's happened in the town. He knows what's going on in the town. People like that. The organizer of your local festival, whoever organizes your local festival that you have in your town. Who knows everyone in your town? Who is that person? Or a group of people? Who might some of those informants be? They might be healthcare workers. You mentioned the nurse in the pediatric clinic. They might be the early childhood teachers. They might be intervention agencies, the lady that works at the front desk at the WIC office, because she meets every family that comes in, every mother and child group that comes in. Elected officials, they get out there and they talk to the people, so contact your elected officials. School district officials, the counselor at school, of course, they can't give you any of the confidential information, but they know the people in their group, in their organization. College professors who may be childhood educators, real estate agents, they know the community very well. And of course, the faith-based organizations as well. Handout 14 has a lot of some of the people that you can find to enlist to be a part of one of your key informants that you can either interview or you can do another focus group with. So handout 14 has a lot of that information for you. Okay. So we want to do a key informant interview. Handout 15 gives you a script for that. And handout 16 and 17 are also one's interview strategies, things that can help you interview people, things to think about when you're interviewing somebody. And then a script also, another script for doing individual interviews rather than focus group interviews. These people, your key informants, have valuable perspectives that they can offer you. And the process is basically the same for doing a community group focus group. So you gather your few people together. You can have a facilitator. This one, you're probably more likely you can probably do this one yourself, but have a facilitator to come in and do the focus group for you if you want to do that. Or with these people, you can do individual interviews. Just sit down with them and ask them the questions, either in person or on the phone, depending on how busy they are and how you can work it out. It's really preferable to do it face-to-face because, you get a lot from just that body language and eye contact. And it supports building a relationship with this person as well, because this person may be a partner for you at some time in the future. They maybe become a strong library advocate when they understand how, important you consider these things in your library. So building a relationship for a partner there is a good thing. So, but doing something over the email, do that as a last resort. The person absolutely can't meet, absolutely can't phone call you. Well, can you answer a few questions for me? Email them the questions. That's the least profitable way to do this. So while you're identifying and in touch with the groups on your community map and your key informants, think about their potential as a partner, a strategic partner. And there'll be, as we saw earlier, another training on developing those relationships with strategic partners in your community. Okay, so in these interview sheets, there's a number of things on here, but make sure like the interview strategies, find out as much about that organization as you can before you interview the person. How it operates, what its goals are, who do they serve, how and where do they serve. Know about the person you're interviewing. What's their title? What is their job in that organization? Of course, set up an interview time that's mutually mutually acceptable to both of you. And let them know what you're asking them, let them know what you're going to want to talk about, so that they can prepare in their own mind, refresh their mind about what that category of information is in their business. Ask them if they would mind you taping it to make sure that you can get all the information correctly recorded from them, and that it will be kept confidential as well for them as well. Bring information about your own library, your own business card. Bring a notepad, pad, and pen that works. And technology that works. Turn your cell phone off. Don't allow any interruptions of that sort, especially on your part, because you're the one interviewing. So make sure that you're not going to be interrupted in that way. Be there early. It's always, when you've made an appointment with someone, it's always good to be there early. Don't be late. Be simple and informal. Make sure you have enough time. 3 to 4 main topics mainly. You just want to know what their role is, what gaps do they need or needs do they see in services, and what potential for their goals and your goals can be strengthened through a partnership with them or through things that you can do and provide. This is another place to find the gaps where you might be able to use programming to fill. Ask them about their responsibilities, their priorities, their relationships with other organizations. You might find out about an organization you don't know about by contacting, oh yeah, I've got connections here, I've got connections there, I know this person in this place and that person in that place. So you may find out about people and organizations that would be advantageous to you by talking to someone in a different organization. What do they lack? What do they need? I know we all have lacks and needs, and everybody's number one need is money, which we're not be able to provide, but we may be able to provide, some kind of service that their clients can take advantage of. And how can the library support them? How can you and your needs and goals mesh with their needs and goals? When you're done, transcribe your results. Use direct quotes when you're using this information as much as you can. Use direct quotes of what they have said. Sometimes you will have diamonds in that little conversation that will be the nugget that you can use for your board, for your funders, for all of these. These can be things that might help you in the future. Highlight the responses that show signs of mutual goals and possible future relationships, and those things which do not indicate any possible future relationship. First they say, well, we really like what you're doing, but we can't see ever participating in anything you do, or we're not even willing to give your information to our people, their patrons, their customers. So we may run across things like that. So you need to be aware of that when you're talking with these people, when you're finished talking to them. And then you take all the interviews that you've done, depending on how many you want to do and how many people you want to contact, and merge all the answers together. analyze the answers together and see what your overall standing is and your strategy maybe for the future and for providing services to parents with their families with young children. Okay. You have now your staff assessment from the people that work with you. You have information from the census and other demographic and data gatherers. You have your personal insights about the community. You have personal insights from these community members, the informants that you've done with your focus groups. And is there any information you think that we need to gather? Any other information that might be worth gathering? Maybe statistics from your state reports. What have we done in the past? Okay, how have our story times changed over the past 5 years? How have our circulation in children's materials changed over the past 5 years? Things like that. Monthly reports to your board. What have you included that pertains to early literacy in your monthly reports to your board? Depends on what role you have. Volunteers don't necessarily do the reports to the board, but they contribute to that, and the director of the library knows what you do and includes that in her report to the board. So some of these things you may want to gather, and so you get just the big picture of what your library is doing and what your community is like and what people think about your community and your service. The big picture that we have there. Okay, now that we've gathered all this information, the community information, the staff information, the informants information, what do we do with it? We have to start analyzing it. We have to put it all together. Analyze means trying to identify what is the norm, what is an anomaly, and what is a trend, and trying to plan accordingly. Let's look at cars as an example. This Chevy Malibu is one of the 10 most popular cars in the US, so it's the norm. A lot of people drive Malibus. In our library, the norm is what we have, what we're doing now. What services do we offer? What people do we believe that we think are in our community? What people do we actually serve? What are the norms in your library? What are the things that you know are the normal things? Most of us do probably a once-a-week story time at least. We may do multiple story times depending on the age groups. We may offer different kinds of programs that are family-oriented and some that are just children-oriented, some that are just adult-oriented. Like I'm talking more like early literacy training for parents, at which every child ready to read 2 is, and it's part of that, and we'll go over that when we have that workshop. But what we do now is our norm. Where we are now is our norm. So identifying our norm is not difficult, but identifying norms in our community may be a little bit more difficult, because sometimes what we think is a norm might not be a norm. Our data may tell us that we're working under false assumptions about what our norm is. We may think, okay, our people are this way. When you start questioning and asking, you find out that that's not quite true. It's a little more to the left or more to the right of that statement. For example, let's say we believe that there are only a small percentage of families living in the poverty level in our community. But then we start doing the research and we find out that 30 to 35% of our families are at the poverty level. Our norm is now different than what we thought it was. Okay, so now we know what the norm really is. We know what the information that we're basing our basic programming on really is, basic services. So we have to look at the anomalies then. This little car is definitely an anomaly. It doesn't look anything, well, fairly like a real car, but it is there. It's out there. Let's say that your data reveals that in addition to the Hispanic population you have in your community, you find out that you also have a lot of Polish and Russian immigrants in your community. I didn't know that. You knew they were there, but you didn't know how big. Or you knew about 3 or 4 different ethnic groups in your community, but you didn't know that you had immigrants from Thailand in your community. You know, various things like that. Our communities are not going to be quite that way. We don't have a lot of immigrants coming into our area so much as some of the larger cities, but you just don't know what you're going to find. Now, you know that your community has certain immigrants coming in. We have a big Spanish population from Puerto Rico here in Jamestown, so we know about that. But in addition to those, you have people who have lived in your town for many years, and you didn't know about them. Those are the Thai immigrants. So they might be an anomaly. But when is an anomaly not an anomaly? What do you think? When would something that's out of the ordinary, that's a surprise to you, not be an anomaly, not be just a quirk in the statistic? That's when it becomes a trend. Hybrid cars used to be very rare. Now they're all over the place. A lot of people have hybrid cars now. But a trend is something that it's not an anomaly. It becomes a trend when you can start to predict it. If your Thai population keeps growing and growing and growing, it's not an anomaly anymore. It's a trend. And when the numbers of instances become significant, maybe in your community of 60,000 people, 20 people who immigrated from Thailand would be an anomaly. But if you have a community of 200 people, 20 people immigrating from Thailand is a significant number. So that would make it a trend. So when do you pay attention to anomalies? You always take note of them. They're on the horizon. They might develop into trends, but we don't consider them too much in our decision because they don't influence a large segment of our population. But when it makes that leap into becoming a trend, and in Jamestown, we've tried to do that with the Hispanic population. They kept growing and growing and growing. So finally, okay, we need to start trying to provide services that specifically meet this need. So we started a Spanish collection as a beginning basic service. Newspapers in Spanish, magazines in Spanish, a lot of books and materials in Spanish. So that was a step one to getting to meeting the needs of this community, which is no longer an anomaly, but a trend. So you have to look carefully and make sure you're clear about the trends, and look carefully at the responses and consider, if we survey the community and have the complete information, is this truly a trend? I don't know if any of you have any trends that you see happening in your community. Do you see more executive type business people moving in? Do you see more people moving out? I mean, trends can be negative too. More of those type of people, affluent people moving out of your community, and your community becoming more agriculturally based, farmers, those kind of things. Something that they have as an idea for a trend now is tattoos. How many people have tattoos now? Used to be hardly anybody, only those biker guys. But now a lot of people have tattoos. Even people you're going with, never guessed you had a tattoo, and they do. So that's kind of the difference between, it used to be an anomaly. Now it's definitely a trend in our society. Check with your colleagues. Their perceptions of things that you might think are an anomaly might make you start thinking of them as a trend and something you need to consider when you address your programming and your services. So think about what can be a trend in your data that you're gathering. And then we need to look for surprises. As you review your data, make note of the surprises. Maybe a certain population is larger than you thought. Use Jamestown because that's where I live. I know Jamestown a little better. The Hispanic population, like I said, we realized how quickly that population was beginning to grow in Jamestown. So we took steps to address serving that population. So you need to look at that. The number of people in poverty, you may be surprised by the number in your community. We have the statistics for the counties, which are well above New York State levels, the statewide levels. because we do have a couple of very poor counties. But you may be surprised at how many people in your own community, among the people you serve, are living in poverty. Perhaps you might want to make a focus group of participants mention, perhaps a focus group participant mentioned that a policy that you have is problematic for her family, and it's something that you never thought to be an obstacle. I'm trying to think of an example for that. Possibly foster children. We have foster children in our family. Can I get them a library card? Are there policies, since they are not the parent, they are possibly the legal guardian, but do you make accommodations for that kind of a thing in your policies, in your programming, and in your policies at your library? So look for the surprises for things that you find. There may be a comment somebody makes in one of the focus groups. They may make a comment that you're going, oh, I never thought about that, or I didn't realize that. And it may be a perception that somebody says, our perception of what the library does or is or handles, the way they handle things is this. And you're thinking, maybe that's something I need to address. I need to address that perception and market more widely. Well, I didn't know the library had all these programs. Market more widely. Deal with those perceptions that people have about your library. Okay, then we need to do some comparing, and more comparing, and more comparing. Compare the ages of those you are serving, the ages of the children that are in your community. How many of those age groups are you getting? Are you missing age groups? I know a lot of us have that issue, like you ladies were mentioning about the tweens and teens, getting them back into the library, getting them to participate in events at the library and in checking out materials in the library. How do we do that? Maybe that can be a part of your focus when you're, this particular workshop is on early literacy, but you may want to try something where you're more general, doing focus groups that are more general, and pull ideas for, well, what can we do to encourage teens to be a part of our programming, be a part of our library? What groups are you missing? We just talked about that. How have your numbers gone up or down with certain age ranges? You can get that from your own statistics sometimes. Handouts 18 and 19, kind of helpful in analyzing your final information. The template, number 19, is a template where you can just kind of fill in, okay, what did I learn about these particular things in my library, in my community? What did I learn? Where can I identify issues that I need to address? Where can I gain insights into being able to correctly estimate what my community needs and where my community is going? So when we go beyond that, we analyze our potentials. We need to know the broad view, who is part of my community. Take that step and look at the data from the broad advantage. Who was it that is my community? Who did I think my community was? Were my conceptions about my community correct? What do the young families need, and how might the library meet those needs? Are there things in your community that the young families with young children feel like they're not getting? Is it something you can step in and meet for them, or meet for them? Do you need to change how your story time program is conducted? Different times, maybe. Different, split the ages, or combine the ages, or including adult education. I know Printavia says that now. They include adult education in all of their story times, or at least that's their goal, is to do that. What do young families want? We find out what they need. What do they want? Maybe a young family, young families say, well, we want more craft activities for our kids. So you can try to address those needs. How can the library meet those wants that the families have? Well, I wish you did something, if you had a Lego group, for example, or a building blocks in your library. So you have something that my kid can play with while I'm here. kind of thing. And that we'll probably cover when we go to talking about library spaces, which will probably be 2 years down the road. But that's some of the things. Do we need to, what obstacles do we need have to making our library more family friendly? Are most of our families employed or single parents? The kids are in childcare, the parent works all day. Do we need to offer more nighttime programs to accommodate those working parents? How can we make changes for them? Do we have obstacles that prevent families from really using our library? So as part of identifying obstacles and areas for improvement, we need to look with new eyes at everything we do and question everything with that favorite preschooler question of why? Why do we do what we do? Why are we doing it this way? Why are we doing it in this pattern? Look at your signs. Are they easy for people to read and understand? Look at your policies. Look at your procedures. Policies and procedures, two different things. Look at your practices. You know, you have your policies, you have your procedures, but what really takes place in your library is your practice, your rules, your marketing. And that, for a lot of us, is a big deal. It's marketing. Trying to get the word out, trying to get the information out so that people know what we offer and what they can be a part of. Your programs and your outreach outside your building, going outside your building to bring a program to some group or organization. Why do we do things this way? Is there a better way to do things? What can we let go of in favor of making our library more family friendly? And that depends on what your library does now, what patterns you have, what opportunities you provide, what programming you do. So can I drop a rule? Do I need to eliminate a service because it's not really not working? Do I need to stop something that I'm doing on outreach because it's not being effective? I know we had an outreach to the after-school programs at one time, but it got to the point where the people working in the after-school programs would give the kids the option of going to see the library lady or going to the pool.
Oh, damn.
So what would the kids choose? Very few of them would choose to go see the library lady. They'd choose to go to the pool. So, you know, that didn't work, and they didn't seem willing to change the way they did it. So that didn't work anymore. We'd get 2 or 3 people, 2 or 3 kids in a group that we prepared several hours for. It wasn't worth the effort. And plus the transportation and going out, not having that staff person in the building, and all of that. So we stopped that outreach. It may be time to start it again. It may be a better climate. You know, things may have changed. But at that time, we felt like it wasn't an effective program, so we stopped that one. Dropping rules. Do you have a rule that does prevent families from participating in your library real easily? You might have to look at that and see. So we need to think big too. Use this information that you're gathering to think bigger than what you do now. What's your long-term vision? That's where this can really be a help to you, is in planning your long-term vision for your library, and especially the early literacy education portion. Where am I going with that in my library? Where am I going? What changes can I make right now? Are there things that came up in these interviews, in the data that was shown, in the statistics that I gathered? Is there something I can change right now that doesn't require a lot of energy to do? What do I want to try to change in the next year? What can be my goal for the next year or the next 3 years? What can be my long-term vision for where the early literacy programming is going in my library, the services that I offer? So, for example, can my library go fine-free? I know a lot of you guys don't charge fines at all now. A lot of you don't have fines for overdue materials. And I don't think most of us require more than one ID for getting a library card. I know most of us do require a parent to approve a child having a library card, which is not generally a difficult thing. But, you know, is there some way we can make our application process easier for young families to take advantage of our libraries? Is there something we can implement? Can we implement a way for someone in a foster system to get a card, or someone who is homeless to get a card? I mean, it may require some restrictions. I know, when we would do cards with the GA home here in Jamestown, they were allowed one item out at a time because they were in and out of that home so quickly that a lot of times we would not get materials back. So we had to limit the number of materials they could check out at one time. But they did have access to the library. They could come in and use the computers. They could check out materials. So they did have access to it. But a family that's homeless that can't provide an ID with a resident on it, is there some way you can have a workaround for them? So then we're done. Not with our workshop here, but done with our analysis. Once we have our goals outlined, we just accomplish them, right? You know, we just make all these changes and it all happens. No, that isn't the way it works. We don't have that ultimate power to snap, make things change. We need the help of other people to accomplish those goals. So how can we best position our ideas to be implemented? What are the best ways to share our findings? You come to a workshop like this, and I've done it many times myself, and pick up all this great information and this great understanding of something, but how do you get it back out there? How do you get the people in your library to have a buy-in in what you're doing and to be able to catch the vision that you have caught? If you work this process, some of that will happen automatically because you're asking them their opinion. That you're asking, what do you think about this? What do you think about how our library does stuff with those surveys and things? You're including them in the decision making of, you know, what do we need to change? What do we need to look at? Are we looking at our community properly? Are we looking at our community with current eyes that understand where things really are? Some of the obstacles that might be raised. What's the big one? I don't have time to do that. You know, that is, it's a legitimate question. It's a legitimate thing. Or I'm already involved in so many projects, I can't take on another project. This is part of the evaluation. Do all those projects, are they really profitable for us or for our community? We need to look at those. I don't have enough money. That's the big one. That's all. Luckily, this particular one doesn't require money. It just requires some time and being willing to gather some people together. Our stereotypes. Oh, our community doesn't need anything like that. We don't need that. We don't have any people like that. We don't have any poor people in our community. You know, we don't have this or that or the other thing. You know, this will open your eyes to what you do have. And we all need to have that awakening. You know, you may know your community real well, and which is good. That's an advantage for you. But you may be surprised by something that you find in this. You have a staff person that really doesn't like the idea of this at all. And they sabotage what you're trying. You know, they just don't want to participate. They don't want to be a part of anything that's going to change the way they do stuff. This is my procedure. I walk in the door. I this, and this. Don't want to do anything else. You know, I don't want to have to deal with those children. They're a pain in the neck and they're too noisy. You know, those are issues we have to deal with. Too little staff. We all have that one. Too few people to do what we need to do. Differences in cultures and operating procedures. And the what if mentality. Well, what if this makes my job change and I don't like what it does? Or what if this brings people in that I'm not really comfortable with? Or what if, you know, all of these, what if I actually have to talk to little children? You know? But it's something that we deal with every day in our libraries. And early literacy is a very important portion of what we do. That is what's going to guarantee that when they become tweens, they stick with us. And when they become teens, they stick with us. And when they're young adults, they bring their children. So this is the kind of stuff that will guarantee that they are part of our lives, our library's lives from now on. So we have to think of ways that we can deal with these. You know, I don't know if you guys have any suggestions. It's not an easy thing, and a lot of times it's an individual thing. You have to deal with the individual in each of these situations. As far as time and other projects, you as the director or the supervisor in your department have the opportunity to change a little of what's done there. Okay, well, don't do that project anymore. If they're willing to make the change. So you get your analysis done, and then you start telling people all about what you've learned. And you need to get the buy-in from above. A lot of you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are actual directors. A couple of you are supervisors in your respective areas. So, but you need to still get the buy-in from above, from your boss, from your board. A lot of times it's, it's our board. You need to have, let's see, we're at handout 20, getting buy-in from above and moving forward. The key advice for this in this whole thing is the second one there. Desensitize your boss or your board by talking early and when nothing is in danger of imminent change. Get them used to the idea that early literacy is going to be on the forefront of our services, and we need to start thinking about what we're going to do in this area so that when we're ready to do it, we're prepared and we're all on the same page. Mention that we can expect to identify changes that we're making, including some of our policies, possibly. If the library, trying to find out if the library as an organization is prepared to change, and how can you help facilitate those changes? Get your boss on board with you for what you want to do, and then how do we work this out? How do I help you? How do you help me? How do we do this? What's your expected time frame? Okay, we want to do this. I think we can get prepared for it. It'll take us 6 months to get prepared to do this change. And then maybe next fall we'll be able to implement this. Get some ideas about your time frames, because sometimes just going in with an idea of making an immediate change, you need to do some groundwork to build that change, get it ready for everyone on board in your library. Is there any reluctance you need to overcome? You need to talk to them more about how important this is. Things like that to help your boss be on board with you so that changes can happen. You talk about the early literacy assessment analysis, the community analysis regularly. You talk about, okay, we did this, and this is some of the comments we got from this focus group that we had. We got this comment and this comment and this comment. And this is really encouraging, and this is an area we need to work on. And you just keep throwing this at your board and your staff and whoever is involved. You just keep them in that loop. Keep making sure that they know what's going on, so that none of this comes up as a surprise and they're suddenly having to do something different, suddenly having to change everything. But keep them. The next to the last one down, almost the next to last, the third one from the bottom. Tell stories. Observe what goes on in your library. Observe what goes on in your community, and be able to tell some of those stories to those who you're trying to get to buy in for you. Our community has this and this and this, and I know that Diane has this rec group that comes every summer and participates in their programming every summer. And some of the comments the kids make, and some of the things that the leaders make, the encouraging things. Oh, our kids just love to come to the library. They're always asking, and then the kids come in, what's your newest book, or what's your newest graphic novel, or what's, do you have this, or do you have that? What are the things that they're saying that are encouraging for you? And then also listening to what are the things, I wish you could do this, or we wish the library this, we wish the library that. Just keeping that all in front of the people that you're working with and the people that have to be a part of these projects. Also, keeping all the information about the people that you've contacted, the people in your focus groups, the informants that you have, all of these things. Keep all their contact information, the information about them, what you know about them. You're not going to keep their comments under their name, because we promised them that what they say is confidential. But just keeping that information because they are future partners with you. You know, some mother in your child, your story time group who comes to this focus group and really is enthusiastic and says, I want the library to do this, I want the library to do that. She may be your next best volunteer. You never know. You never know where you're going to get people from and what's going to happen with these connections that you make. Then expressing pride and enthusiasm about your library, about everything that goes on and happens there. I know we all do that, but it's important, especially with those people that you really want a buy-in from, those people that you really want to be on board with you, and especially those who have the power to help you accomplish it. And if you're diligent about this, then when you do share your list of goals, the things that you want to do, all the soil is prepared and people are ready to say, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's step out and do that. Let's be energetic. Let's go on and we will work on this together. And that's your best chance for success, is having all those people working with you. You're the gardener, and we want to put our heart and soul into everything we do to produce the finest results that we can in all of this. Do you have any comments or questions? This a lot to engulf in at one time, but I would suggest going back and reading over especially the things about the focus groups, the interviews, those kind of things. Go over that stuff, in detail. Read it, look at it, and because every one of us can do this, and I'm hoping every one of you will do it because the state wants you, because I want you to. But really, you came here because you wanted to learn how to do this, and so doing it is the best way to accomplish that. The state does have a little assignment for you, handout 21. Within 3 months, by January 25th, they'd like to have an assessment done or an analysis done by each of the libraries that participate. And then they have a survey monkey that they're going to send to you eventually to fill out for them so that they can have some statistics. It's a grant funded thing. Everybody's got to have their statistics for that. So they're going to do that. If you do an analysis, and I hope you all will, please, you're going to do a write-up of some sort of it when you finalize it. You're going to probably, want to present it to your board. Did all this work, we found out this information, or even if it's we found out we're doing the best that we can and we're meeting the needs of our community, this is a good statistic for supporting what you do and why you do it. We're meeting our goal as our library's mission. We're doing this, we're doing that. If you write it up to present to your board or maybe to your funders, anyone who would have an interest in this, send that to me too, so that I can see what you've done and see how it worked out, because they have a whole report that I have to report too. So they will be sending you a survey monkey survey to that email address that you gave. And when you do this and write it up, send me a copy of that. If you want to be a part of my committed libraries where I really work closely with you, I have 4 slots for that. I think that's what I can handle. So if you're interested in that, I'd kind of like to keep it at some of the smaller libraries who really are, one-man show kind of thing, so that can help you guys. But I will definitely do the facilitating for you, and I probably can do the facilitating for a lot of you. I mean, this is not a huge group. I only have 8 libraries here. So, doing the facilitating would not be a difficult thing for me to come. If you needed, a facilitator, you didn't have someone else you wanted to ask, I'd be willing to come out and do that for you. But that's the crux of this, is to get that analysis done. Find out what is in your community. Find out where you need to make changes, where you have misconceptions about what's going on, and what needs to happen in your community. So you're empowered now. Empowered. The word right here, empowered. So you're empowered to do this. And if you take it step by step, it is not that difficult. It will happen, it takes a little time, but doing it step by step, it is not that difficult. I do have the handout that has all the websites on it, is loaded onto these computers at the top, it's just wake them up. And if you want to stay after lunch and work on that, I will be here to help you if you want to do some of that demographic searching now. Since we have some time after lunch, we were scheduled to go to 2:30, and we're not going to go anywhere close to that. You can do that. You can stay with me, and we'll work on that after lunch. Lunch should be here when we get. And if you want to be part of one of those 4 committed libraries that has me helping with every step of this whole thing, talk to me after. So we hope you'll do one in your library. I know that you can each do one. You have the tools there. The important thing to me when I was looking at this is, oh, good, they gave me a script of questions to ask. Because that was always the thing. What do I ask these people? What do I ask these people? And then analyzing afterwards, how do I put this information together? Those are the 2 big pieces of it to me. And not being an expert in this at all myself, I've just learned a lot of this since March. And then there's an exit evaluation. Everybody's going to fill this out. I have to send it all to the state. They say that they agonized over every question on here, so they have a reason connected to their grant for every single question on here. So if you will, make sure you fill that out and give it to me. Leave it on the little table up here before you leave. I would appreciate that. So we're going to work with our families. We're going to work with our community. We're going to find out how we can assist the community in early literacy education for our young children. And we're going to succeed. Thank you for coming. Let me turn off the recording. Okay.